everybody. How we doing, Connecticut? Well, what a great day out there today. I want to thank everybody for joining us here tonight. And I want to thank the voters of Connecticut for giving me the shot to be this state's voice in the United States Senate for another 6 years. Well, there are still lots of races that are yet to be called. I want to thank all of the volunteers who are here today. I want to thank all of the voters across the state for what looks to be an overwhelming victory tonight in our race for the United States Senate. So let me get the most important thank you first, and that is to my amazing family, to Kathy, to Owen, and to Ryder. Thank you for taking this ride with me, for putting up with it all. Thank you for being partners with me. Second, I'm really proud of my campaign team. I hope you'll give them a big round of applause. To everyone in my Senate office who has served the state of Connecticut so well, to all of my campaign team, thank you for what you've done for me, for my family, and for the state tonight. Let me send a special shout out to an organization that we started last year that I think has created a new model for how we are going to do permanent activation and activism in this state. Thank you to Fight Back Connecticut for everything you've done for the last 2 years. Let me tell you how lucky I am to have an amazing teammate who is down in Stamford tonight with his son who is running. But every single day I get to go to work with somebody who models how to speak truth to power. Give a round of applause for Dick Blumenthal, our senior senator. Thank you to Dick and to all of the delegation. Fourth, to all of the other candidates that are running all across the state, those who had the courage to put their names on the ballot. A lot of them are new people who never envisioned running for office before. They put everything on the line this year because they knew that the stakes were so high. So I want to say thank you to everyone that I had the privilege of campaigning with and for sharing the ballot with me this year. Give a round of applause to all of our great candidates. Next to all of the volunteers, I mentioned them to you already, but it is really amazing what we did. Just this last weekend, on behalf of candidates for office all across this state, Democratic volunteers made over 1 million phone calls, knocked on over 230,000 doors. That is amazing. I've never, ever seen an outburst of energy like that on behalf of people who care so much about our state. And most importantly, thank you to the people of Connecticut. From the deepest depths of my heart, thank you for giving me the opportunity of a lifetime to represent a state that has meant so much to me and to my family. Whether you voted for me or for Matt Corey, who I commend for running a good campaign, I pledge to give every ounce of my being to fighting for the state of Connecticut in the Senate for the next 6 years. Thank you to the voters of the state of Connecticut. Now, I mentioned it's too early to know the outcome of all the races across the country and across the state, but we knew 2 years ago to this day that we were in for a rough ride, and we knew that this day, Election Day, would in many ways be a moral reckoning for our great nation. We've known this for 2 years, and the election of Donald Trump, it created this deep void inside of us that we've been trying to fill for 2 years. The questions that we have been forced to ask ourselves as a nation have been serious, they've been dire, and they've been difficult. But I have a feeling, looking at the early returns here in Connecticut and across this country, that we are going to be able to answer most of these questions tonight in a way that will stand as a spiritual reconstitution of America. We are not a nation that will allow the middle class to become something that our kids read about in history books. The wage crisis, the salary crisis, they are real. And tonight we have a chance to say loud and clear that Connecticut wants a higher minimum wage and that Connecticut wants more people to be able to join labor unions all across this state. Now, we are not a nation that sees health care just as a commodity to be manipulated by big companies whose priority is their bottom line, not our health. And tonight we have the chance to say, loud and clear, that America now knows that the Affordable Care Act works, and our job is to protect it and make it better, not to tear it down. We are not a nation that turns a blind eye to our brothers and sisters, our children who are being gunned down at a rate 20 times that higher of that of similar nations. We are not a country that puts the profits of the gun industry before the safety of our people. Tonight, we have a chance to say loud and clear that the gun lobby is no longer in charge of our gun laws in this country. And we are not a nation that sees immigrants as animals, as this president says. We are not a nation that points guns at hungry, desperate mothers and fathers who see America as a place of refuge, a place of salvation. Tonight, we have the chance to say loud and clear that we are a nation of immigrants who see our diversity as our foundational strength of this country. And lastly, we are not a nation that tolerates bullies or wannabe tyrants. We are a democracy, and maybe louder and clearer than anything that we can say tonight, we're saying here in Connecticut that if you come after our democracy, then we are coming for you. So, my friends, there just isn't any way for me to tell you how seriously I've taken this responsibility for the last 6 years, how seriously I'm going to take this mandate that you've given me to represent this state over the next 6 years. I love this state, and I love it with everything that I have. My parents are here tonight. My mother grew up in public housing in New Britain. She was a child of a Polish immigrant family, and she was here because her family heard about the great manufacturing jobs in New Britain and all across this state. And these manufacturing jobs, they're now coming back to Connecticut in droves. You have to understand that our present in this state is our past, and it is our future. My father, who's here tonight, he grew up on Church Street in Wethersfield, and his father was a World War II engineer who came back to Connecticut and made and designed buildings all over the state. Engineering and technology jobs are now flooding into Connecticut. Companies that are seeing that no state can match our state for the combination of quality of life and great schools and talented workforce. Our past is our present and our future. This is a great, unique place to live. Don't let anybody tell you differently. Connecticut is worth fighting for. And that's why I asked for this job, and that's why I am so fired up for the next 6 years. But you came out in record numbers to volunteer and to vote because you also believe that America and the ideas that undergird our democracy, they're worth fighting for too. You know, there's this legend about the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia where at the end Benjamin Franklin walks out and a young boy asks him, "What do we have, Mr. Franklin? Do we have a monarchy or a republic?" And Franklin says to the boy, "Well, you have a republic if you can keep it." This country, America, is an absolute revelation. The greatest innovation in governance that the world has ever seen, has ever known. Now, it has its faults, and as we have seen, it has its vulnerabilities. But century after century, decade after decade, when demagogues and dividers come after it, American democracy has proved resilient. Our country has had some dark times, and too many people still suffer all across it. But when these tests arise, millions of Americans rise up, as they have today in Connecticut, like you did today, like you have over the last 2 years. We rise up and we say loud and clear that we are ready to fight to keep it. So, on behalf of Kathy and Owen and Ryder, we thank you, everyone in this hall, all of the amazing people of this state, for putting your faith in me and in us. I look forward to the next 6 years. God bless the state of Connecticut. God bless the United States of America. Thank you very much, everybody.
You've been watching live coverage of Senator Chris Murphy addressing his supporters and giving his victory speech, going back to the U.S. Senate for another 6 years. A second term there he is with his wife Kathy and his sons Owen and Ryder.
A big win over Matthew. Corey did a little bit better than he did against Linda McMahon 6 years ago. And if you're wondering what's next for Chris Murphy in terms of perhaps running for president, well, during our U.S. Senate debate here in WFSB, I asked him, and he said he would commit to serving a 6-year term. So any presidential run, he'd have to get out of that pledge and commitment first.
All right. I think we're going to take a look at the